Good morning, everyone. So, in the last session, we discussed about this particular do while as well as for loop related example we discussed here. So, we have identified list of example with a different example we identified here. And in the last session, this is the for each related example we identified. And later we discuss about the nested for each related example. Okay. So, this is very important. We need to understand here. And we printed the value based on this particular order here. Okay, so earlier what we did basically, and here in the earlier we come up with the reverse order. Now we are printing the natural order basically here. Getting the point. This is we need to understand very carefully. So how we are printing the reverse order basically. So here I'm going to provide the j is equals to I and j less than 10. And here what we can do, we can make the j plus plus here. Getting the point. This is important. We need to understand here. If I'm going to run the same example, so this is the reverse order it is printing. Okay. So these are all the some logical example we can use using this particular nested loops here. And today we'll understand the one of the important example called introduction to the classes. So if we observe carefully from the beginning onwards, we are discussing about the classes here. And this particular classes we did not discuss about the what is the purpose of this particular class. And here, so today's session we'll understand the what exactly the class contain here. Okay, and if we observe here, I'm defining the one data type here int I comma j. Okay, same way, this is the one of the custom data type here. Getting the point. This is the one of the custom data type we are using here. So this particular custom data type can contain the different methods, different variables, and different information is contained. So what we can call it as it is the custom data type we are going to use whenever we are defining this particular class here. And here what we will do whenever we'll define this particular class internally, we are going to construct the classes information, the property of the class and the methods of the class we are going to construct internally. Okay, so this is important. We need to understand here. And here, so if you are trying to implement any concept in our Java language, so it's going to start with within the class. If the class is not available, we are not going to implement any example here. Now we can understand here how much this particular class is important here. Getting the point. So this is very important. We need to understand here. Basically, if I'm trying to implement anything in our Java language, it's going to start with the class here. Okay. Now, so here, what we can understand here, how we are going to define this particular class. The class we are trying to define with a public class. This is the keyword to define the name of the class, and here the name of the class I'm trying to provide here. So once I provide here, you can see I'm trying to come up with braces here. It is a open brace, and here I'm trying to close. So this is, we'll call it as a scope of the class. Getting the point. This is very important here. This is the particular scope of the class we are going to call here. And finally, what we will do basically here, what we will do, we are going to define the different properties information inside this particular class here. Okay, so let's have a simple example how this particular class is going to connect here. And once we define this particular custom data type here, what we will do, we are going to create an object of the particular type here. Getting the point. So whatever the type we are defining here, we are going to create the type of this particular object here. And the class we are going to call it as a template, and object it's we are going to call it as the real object. Like the object can contain the real value. So right now the class can contain only template here. So template is nothing about just we are going to declare the information, but the information we are going to access through the help of the object here. So object can contain the values, the class can contain it's a template here. Okay, so now when you declare this particular class here, so we are going to declare the nature of our object here. Okay, so now observe carefully, and here I'm going to create a one package here. So this particular package can contain the current example what we are going to discuss here. Okay, something like object I'm declaring, and inside this particular object I'm going to create a class. So the class name, for example here, the name of the class what I will do, so for example what is the name we can take here, Uh, so box I'm going to take. Okay, now you can see, so inside this particular box class, now what I'm doing here, I'm going to define the variable. So to define the variable, first what we will do, we'll define the type here. This type is very important. Getting the point? This type is very important, and once we define the type here, and we'll try to come up with the instance variable 1, and how many we want to create here, the instance variable, we can create the instance variable here. So one I'm creating, and this is the second one I'm trying to create, and this is the third one. So this will call it as a instance variable creation, and another one we'll try to define the method here. The return type of the method I'm defining, and the name of the method, so it's like a method name and parameter. So this is the parameter list, and it is contain this method body. Method body. This is the another important information. Now you can see, so we'll call it as a variable information, and we are calling as a method information. So everything we are going to write inside this particular class. Okay, now observe how I'm defining the variable and how I'm defining the method here. Okay, first we need to define the type here. The type I'm defining as a double. The type I'm defining as a double, and now you can see the variable name. What is the variable name I'm taking? Something like width here, and one other variable height I'm taking, another variable depth I'm taking. Getting the point? So these are all the three variables I'm taking. Okay, so these three variable we'll call it as a instance variable. Okay, these are all the three variable, we'll call it as a instance variable. Now what about this particular method here? How we can define this particular method here? So the method basically how we'll declare here, the method we are going to declare like this here. So the return type of the method right now I'm making as a void. So this section we already discussed in the previous session. So why we are making the void here? Basically the method is not going to return anything here. The method, it will not return any value. So those method we are going to make as a void. Those method we are going to make as a void here. Okay, so this is important, we need to understand. Okay, now observe name of the method. So right now the name of the method, what I will do, value method I'm defining. Okay, so this is the name of the value. It's nothing but the name of the method we are defining it. Now, so this is the current object what we are creating. Now observe carefully. Double we are define the variables. Okay, these are all the instance variable we are calling here, and we are creating a one custom object. Whenever we are creating this particular custom object, it contain the template here. So this is basically we'll call it as a template. Template is nothing but, so what is the data types we are having, that is a variable name we are having, what are all the methods we are having. But once we create an object only, we are able to access the all the properties here. We are able to access the original values here. So this is very important here. Now understand here. So I'm going to stop this particular class related example here, and we'll create a main method. So the main method purpose, I'm creating the one more class here, something like a box demo main. Okay, so the box demo main I'm creating here, and once I create this particular box demo main, I'm trying to come up with a main method here. Inside the main method, I'm creating an object. So what is an object we are creating here? The box class object we are creating. So how I'm trying to create an object, this is important. Observe. So this is, we'll call it as a type here. Whatever I'm highlighting here, this is, we call it as a type. What is the type of object we are creating? Okay, the type of object basically it is a box here. And why I'm declaring this particular small box here? It is a reference variable. The reference variable we can define any name other than this particular keywords here. Other than this particular keyword, we can define any name here. Okay, so this is we need to understand regarding this particular box reference variable. And what is the use of this particular new? So this particular new keyword, it is a keyword basically, it will try to initialize the object here. Is nothing but it will create an object here. So and the final one, what exactly it is contain this? Okay, what exactly this will contain? It is we are going to call it as a constructor. Constructor basically it's going to be have the same name of the class name. Name of the class it should match with the constructor name. Okay, this is the default constructor we are going to call. Why we are calling the default constructor here? This constructor cannot have a parameters. This constructor cannot have a parameter. So this is we are going to call it as a default constructor. So we'll see what is the parameterized constructor we are going to have. Now what you understand basically, so you can imagine this is the heap memory we are having. Okay, inside this particular heap memory, one object is allocated for our object. What is the object allocated here? Box here. Okay, so this is the I'm going to make as a heap memory. The heap memory can contain the multiple objects. Okay, so we don't know like how many objects we are having right now, but one space is like some space is allocated for our object. What is an object we created now? The particular object we created as a box here, and the reference variable, the BOX, whatever this particular BOX we are having, this BOX is contained this particular object here. And internally, and what is the information we can access here? First one is width variable, second one is height, third one is depth variable, finally the another one is volume here. Volume. So these are all the four information we are having inside this particular class. So if you go to this particular box class, now you can see. So these are all the three variables we are having and one method we declare here. One method we are declaring here. Okay, so now see the differences here. This four information we are able to access inside this particular heap memory. How we are going to access this information? With the help of this particular box. So why we are defining this particular box is this particular box only is going to provide the information where our objects are resides here, where our current object is resides here. So the object is resides inside the heap memory. If we want to access the particular object information, we are going to use this particular box here. Okay, this is we'll call it as a reference variable. Getting the pen? Reference variable I'm trying to write here. Okay, this is important. Why we need? Because without this particular variable name, you cannot access the current object information here. Okay, this is the syntax we need to follow whenever we are trying to create in a box here. Okay, first one, what is indicating the type? What is the type of object we are creating? What is the type of object here? It is called box type. Because box is a one object we create, like one class we declare here. It's like a custom type here. Box is a custom type. Why I'm saying the custom type? Because the predefined we already identified something like int, double, and float, getting the point, and char, getting the point. These are all the predefined data types. These are all the predefined data types we are having, and the box is not defined inside our Java language. So we are creating explicitly. This box we are creating explicitly. That's the reason we are calling as a custom data type here. And the custom data type, we are trying to create an object using this particular syntax here. Okay, so if we want to create any object here, so these are all the ways we can create an object here. Box is equals to new box here. And here, whenever the object is created, the object is going to store inside this particular variable to access the future references here. To access this particular information for the future reference, we are going to store into the variable called this particular box. And this is the default constructor. What it will do, this particular default constructor, it will initialize the values. What values it is going to initialize here? What are all the variable we are defining? These are all the three variables we are having right now. Okay, this basically we'll call it as a instance variable. The instance variable values is going to initialize it by the default constructor here. Okay, the default values is going to initialized by this particular constructor here. Now what I'm doing here? So now what I'm doing here, I'm going to provide the let me print this SYSO box dot depth I'm printing. So I just want to find out the depth value. Right now, what is the depth value we are having? Something like 0.0. So how this 0.0 is getting here is because of the constructor. It's because of this particular constructor. The constructor basically it will initialize the value. Getting the point? Constructor it will initialize the value here. Okay. So this is we need to understand very carefully. And once we completed this particular default constructor, now you can modify the value. If you are interested to modify, you can modify. But how we are modifying the value? Again, with the help of this particular box. So you can see this particular box is going to play very important role. Now observe carefully. Here we are having the value method, and here we are having the three variable information. Here we are having the three variable information and we are having value. But how we are getting this information? How we are getting this information to this particular box? Because the type of object we created the same here. The type of object we created here only box type. Okay. This particular reference variable can contain the all the information so which are available inside this particular class. Okay. So this is important we need to understand. And finally, what I'm doing here, I'm going to initialize the value. I'm going to initialize the value. So right now I'm giving as a 15 value I'm giving. Okay, right now I'm giving as a 15 value. Now for another variable, I'm going to give something different value, 20, and box dot depth. How many variables we are having? These are all the three variables. But initially, when we are trying to discuss with other example, how we are declaring it, int a is equals to 10, int b is equals to 20. Okay, so those variable we did not create an object. So if you observe here, not this exactly. Here you can see int sum is equals to 0. But this particular variable int sum is equals to 0, we did not create any object here. Hitting the button here, we did not create any object. Why we did not create? It is a primitive data type. It is a primitive data type and it is already defined here. Directly we can access wherever we want. But what about this box here? It is a custom data type here. Getting the button. It is a custom data type here. So this data type is not available inside our object. Which data type? That is called box here. That is called box. But this particular box basically, now what we are doing it, if we want to initialize these values, we are going to create an object, and using this particular object reference here, we will try to initialize the values here. Okay, the initialization section we are doing right now. So this is the three variable we are initializing. Directly we cannot access the variable here. If I'm going to access this, directly if I'm going to access this value, so now you can see it is not initializing the value. It is giving me an error. Why it is giving me an error here? This is important we need to understand here. Width. Okay. So if I'm going to see the error, this variable cannot be resolved here. This variable cannot be resolved here. So create a local variable here. Now you can see again the variable we are getting as a int here. Int width is equals to 25. Basically this is the different variable. But this variable we already declared here. Where we declare inside this particular box class. Getting the point? This is important here. So if I'm trying to add this, it is a local variable. It is a local variable to this particular main method. But what we are doing is we want to initialize the value, the variable which is available under this particular box class. Okay. Now observe carefully. If I'm going to print the same value one more time, now the value is going to modify. Now the value is going to modified here. So earlier it is a 0.0. Now the value it is returning as a 10.0. Now the value it is returning as a 10.0. Okay. So this is important we need to understand here. This is important we need to understand here how we are initializing the value. Okay. Any questions up to this? See basically, so box demo main class it is possible to see. What I want to provide, how we are accessing this variable is important. The variable we are accessing with the help of this particular reference variable. The reference variable is contained the what type here? It is a box type. And now we'll go to the box class. Inside the blocks, how many variables we are having? Only 3. If we are having more, so for example, if you are having, so this is also one more variable, you can access this directly here. Now you can initialize some value here. Getting the point. So this is the we can do. But if you are trying to do inside this particular box demo main method, this is the local to this particular main only. So whatever I'm trying to write, something like into value is equals to something like what if I'm trying to provide 45. This is the local variable. This is the variable what we are declaring here into value 45. It is not related to this particular class here. Okay, this variable we are declaring, just we are using inside this particular main class, but same variable we cannot use inside this particular main class, sorry, box class. But these 4 variable we can use inside this particular box class wherever we are required. For example, what I'm doing here, I want to find out the volume of this particular box. Now what I'm doing here, so here I'm going to return width, height, and depth here. So this is we can use. But for example, if I'm going to come with one more method, for example, uh, value method. Okay, here I'm going to write a value. The value basically the value we declare inside this particular box demo. Here the line number 11. But this value it is applicable to this is the path. Okay, is applicable to this is the path. We cannot use this value inside our box class. Now you can see I'm getting an error. Why? Because again compiler, this variables where we are declaring, the variable we are declaring here. Okay, the variable we are declare inside this particular box class, but we did not define the value. The value we did not define it. But here we are defining the value. This is applicable to this particular path. But if we observe carefully, even here we are having the value. But how we are accessing the value? So with the help of this particular box class. Why I'm accessing with help of this particular box? Because the variable we declare inside the box class, not in the inside the main method. So if this particular value is also declared inside this particular box class, we can access here as well as we can access here also. Okay, so this is we need to understand whenever you are defining like this, it is a local variable. Okay, it is a local variable to this particular main method. It is not related to this particular box class. So this is I want to provide the information. Whenever you are declaring the variable these 3 or 4 or 10 or only one variable, so this variable we are going to access with help of this particular box class object creations only wherever it is required. Because basically once this heap memory is created, once this particular object is created for this particular box here, okay, we can access we can access this particular box variable wherever it is required, wherever it is required here. So simply what I want to provide here, simply inside this particular box main method, if I want to call this out here, now what I'm trying to do, box dot value method. So value method I'm calling. Now you can see, so using this particular, let me see. Okay, so using this particular value, again we are calling, but here the reference is important. So without this particular reference, again we cannot call the value method. So for example, if I'm calling this value method, see we are getting an error. Why we are getting an error? Because this value method where we are declaring, like where you are defining this value method. So if you are not having this particular reference here, if we are not having this particular reference here, it cannot understand from where this method is declared and how can I identify it here. But how we are declaring it? Box. Box is basically, it is a reference of this particular class here, and a dot. Dot basically what is doing it is trying to make the relation between this particular box as well as the value method. and as well as here box as well as variable. Getting the band is the reference variable dot the variable here, and here the reference variable dot method here. Reference variable dot method. Okay, so this is the way we are going to make the relation using this particular dot. But what we need to understand, with help of this particular box only, we are able to call the value, because the value we define inside this particular box class, and this value method we did not define. Just we are calling this. Just we are calling from the line number 14, but where this method is declared is also important. Okay, so here the line number 13 we are calling, and the method is already we define inside this particular box class line number 9 to 11. Getting the point? So this is important, we need to understand here. Okay, so here whatever the information we are having inside this particular box class, the all the information we are able to access with the help of this particular box reference variable. And so what are the specific information we are having? So those information we cannot access here. Okay, so now is it clear? If anyone having any question? Okay, so what about the others? Okay, now observe carefully. So this is the one of the important. If you understand this particular example, you can easily move on to the other concept easily. So otherwise, you will stuck here. So you cannot understand what happening basically. Okay, it's a simple. What I want to provide, whatever the information, whatever the like variable informations or method information, we are going to write in the specific class. If you want to access those information, how we are going to access here? With the help of this particular object creation. Okay, so once we create an object, the object is going to store into the variable called the reference variable box here, and using this reference variable, and what are all the properties and the variable and the methods we are available inside the specific class. How we can check here? So that how we can check it? The first we need to check the reference variable, and the reference variable contain what data type. The reference variable contain the what data type. Here, what is the data type here? Box type. Getting the point? Here it is a box data type. It is the custom data type we are defining here. It is not related to the any int, double or float. So this is the specific like the custom data type that we created just now. The data type called box here. Okay. So using that we are able to call. Now finally, if I'm going to run this example, now you can see. Now finally, if I'm going to run the depth value, we are getting 10, and the value of this particular box I'm getting as a 3000. How I'm getting this particular 3000 here? This value will call. This is the calling section. Basically, this is the calling section, and this is whenever we are calling the method, it will call to here, and this is the called section, or we can call it as a call section here. Okay, the called section is this method is going to be called, and once it is called here, what we are doing internally, we are doing the operation here. What is the multiplication we are doing here? Like based on this particular three variables, we are doing all the multiplication here, and once we are getting the result is going to return by this particular return statement here. The result is going to return by this particular return statement, and the return statement is printed by this particular println statement here. Okay, so this is we need to understand very carefully here. Getting the point? So this is very important, we need to understand here. Okay, so any questions regarding this particular box creation and initializing the value? So this is section we'll call it as a initializing the value, and this section we'll call it as a method calling, and the method is going to be called here. Okay, right now we are not going to discuss much about this, but we'll see how these methods are going to define with the different styles here. So mainly we need to focus on the variable creation here, and once we create this, so we can easily understand the initializations, all those things here. Okay, now one more object I'm creating. And here, observe carefully. This is the box object we created, and this is the box 2 object I'm creating. This is the box 2 object I'm creating. Now what I'm doing here, using this particular box 2, what I will do, here I'm going to initialize the multiple values. So now you can see box 2 dot width. Box 2 dot width I'm initializing as a 3, and box 2 dot height here. So box 2 dot height I'm providing as a 6, and box 2 dot depth I'm giving as a 9 here. Okay, so this is the different object here, and this object, like whatever the box object and the box 2 object, cannot be same here. So you can see, if I'm going to print the references path of these two objects, references path of this particular two objects here, both are different here. Now you can see the first one is having 470E2030, and the second one having something different. Get in the band. This is important here. Whatever the object we created, first box object we created, and later box 2 object we created. But here, both objects are not same here. If the both objects are not same, the values also be different here. Whatever the operation we are doing here, the operations also will be different here. Get in the band. This is, we need to understand here. Okay, so now observe, I'm declaring, like I'm initializing the value. Where we declare the variable? So here we declare the variable. Get in the one. Here we are declaring this particular variable, and here we are initializing the value. So once we initialize the value, now what we are going to do? So if I'm going to print this particular all the values, box 2 dot width, and height, and finally the three variables we are printing here. Now you can see, whenever I'm trying to print this particular three variables here, and as well as, so we already printed these two. So now I'll remove this section, and here I will make box reference. Sorry, only box. Okay, so here I'm printing these three values, and here I'm printing these three values. So right now I'm going to comment out the value and this particular box as well as this particular box too. Now you can see, so I'm trying to print the two objects information and the two object variable information I'm trying to print here. Now you can observe, first one 10, 15, 20, and the second one 3, 6, 9. Get in the point. So these two objects are not equal. These two objects are not equal. And now observe, one more object I'm creating. Box 3 is equals to box here. So if we observe carefully, okay, sorry, the type should be capital. Okay, now you can see box 3 I'm creating. How I'm creating this particular box 3? By passing this particular object here. Now here what we need to understand here, because here we are having box 3 is equals to box here. Whenever we are having like this, so as we discuss here, right side information is going to store into this particular left side variable. So how we declare here, like x is equals to something like 10. The 10 value is going to store into this particular left side variable. Okay, same way here, whatever the box object we are having now, right now what we are doing is, we are trying to store into this particular box 3. Right now we are trying to store into this particular box 3 here. Okay, this is very important, we need to understand here. Getting the point. This is very important, we need to understand here. So right now what we are doing here, line number 8, whatever the box object we are having, the box object I'm trying to copy into this particular box 3. Okay, so now I will copy this, and before printing this I will try to give some spaces here. Okay, this will differentiate all the objects here basically. And now here I will print this, and here what I'm doing here, I'm going to modify, like I'm going to print with the box 3. Getting the point. So why I'm printing with the box 3 here? Because here the box 3 basically what is doing here? It is trying to clone the object. From where it is trying to close? From this particular box class it is trying to clone. Getting the point. This is important here. From the box class it is trying to clone here. Okay. So now let's run this particular example here. Okay. First object is having 10, 15, 20, and this is basically box 1 object, and this is the box 2. And now if you observe, this is the box 3. Now what you understand here? Okay. So box 3 is nothing but B3 and B2, and this is nothing but B1. Now what you understand here? B1 and B3 are same. B1 and B3 are same. So why we are having the same objects here? Why we are having the same object here? Okay. So this is important here. Here what we are doing here, just we are copying the object. Copying object is nothing but whatever the information we are having inside this particular box class, all the information we are going to copy into this particular box 3. Because of that we are having same information. Because of that only we are having same information. So for example, now observe carefully. For example, this is one more information I want to provide. Let me copy this 3 here. So after print, okay. So before print only I will modify here. Here now what I'm doing here, I'm trying to modify references important. See carefully. I'm modifying to box 3 here. Okay. I'm trying to modify to box 3, and here the value. So this is the 13, 16, and 19. Now carefully observe this information is very important here. Now what I'm doing here, with help of this particular box 3, not box 1 or box 2, I'm trying to modify the value. With help of this particular box 3, I'm trying to modify the value. Whenever I'm trying to modify the value, so from where it is going to affected here. Now see carefully what happens internally. What happens internally? But if you are thinking here, box 3 is having different value and box 1 having is different value. Is it correct? Is it correct basically? No, it is wrong basically. So basically, if I'm going to copy the one more time, okay, the box 1 again I'm trying to print after this. Again, the box 1 I'm trying to print after this statement here. Okay, so see carefully. The values will be same, box 1 and box 3. Now understand here. Okay, this is we already discussed here. So observe carefully. This is the important example we are discussing here. Okay, now this is the box 1 we are having, and this is the box 2 we are having, and this is the box 3 we are having, and this is again B1 we are printing. From where we are printing this B1? So the last println statement. Okay, these are all the last println statements. Okay, this is, now you can see it is a box. Box is nothing but box 1 here. Okay, finally we are printing the box. And now what you understand here, box 3 printing here and box 1 we are printing, but both are having same. Both are having same here. Getting the band. Now you can read this all the values here. Both are having same 19, 16. So sorry, 19, 13, 16, and same way here also 19, 13, 16. Okay. Now what you need to understand carefully, why the values are different here and why the values are same here. So initially I'm printing the same B1, I'm getting 10, 15, 20, and the same B1 I'm printing last year, the values are modifying here. Because the values we modified with a different object. Here we modify the box 3 object only. Here we are modifying the box 3 object, not box 1 object. So you can see box 1 how we are modifying with help of this box dot width 10, 15, and 20. Okay, so when you are modifying with the box 3, when we are trying to modify with the box 3, it is affecting into box class also. This is I want to provide. Why it is affecting? Getting the bun. Why it is affecting? Because Now, if you print this println two statements here, last two statement. Here, instead of box 2, I want to print box 3. Okay. The last two statements you can identify what happening internally. Okay. Now you can read this. Both objects are same or not? 470E 2030. Okay. Both objects are having same references here. How we are having this particular same references basically here? Now what we are doing above. First we need to understand the above here. Here the line number 8, what we are doing basically. So whatever the right value we are having, we are trying to store into this particular left variable. Okay. Now what you need to understand here? Now what you need to understand here? You need to understand here basically whenever you are going to clone the object, getting the point? Whenever you are going to clone the object, now basically the clone object and original object will contain the same references here. So it's nothing but this diagram is going to provide look like. So this is the heap memory. Okay. The heap memory contain the box 1 and it contain the box 3. Here I'm trying to provide box 1, box 3. Okay. So the references are namings are different, but it internally it contain the one object only. It contains the one object. Here we are having width, and here we are having depth, and here we are having height. So initially 10, 15, and 20. Okay. And whenever we are trying to modify, when we are trying to modify here, so if you go to this here, using box 3, your box 3, now what we are doing is, we are trying to modifying the value. So whenever we are trying to modify, initially with help of this particular variable, we initialize the value. Okay, we initialize the value, and now with help of this particular box 3, we are modifying here. Okay, whenever we are modifying, basically both are connecting the same object. So now the values are become width value 13 and height value something like 16 and depth value something like 19. Getting the point? So these are all the values are going to modified. So because of this only, because of this particular, both the references are different here, object is same. Because of this, it is affecting in the two locations, box as well as box 3. Okay. So this is the, I want to provide the information very carefully. Whenever we are trying to cloning an object, it is having the same references. But whenever we are trying to create an object with this particular new operator, it is different. Now you can see. So instead of this particular box here, if I'm going to use new box, it is a new basically what is doing here, it is trying to create a new object here, not the copy object here. So now if I'm trying to print here, so see 10, 15, 20 as it is printing, and you can see here also we are having 10, 15, 20. Okay, 10, 15, 20 same initially, and at the last also we are having same, and this is the box 3. Now you can compare two objects. Two objects are different here. So earlier, so the below object also we are having the same, but right now the below object is different here. Why it is different? Because right now what happens internally, so this object is different, box object, and box 2 is the different, and box 3 is also different under this particular heap memory. Okay, so this is basically heap memory, and this contain the box 1, and this contain the box 2. Okay, and this contain the box 3. And earlier what happens internally, these two are having the same. So here earlier we are having here also box 3, but right now the box 3 is coming as a different object. The box 3 coming as a different object. Why it is coming as a different object? Because so what we are using here, new operator. So here also we are using new operator. Here also we use the new operator, but here we did not use the new operator. So just we copy the object here. Okay, this is a way whenever we are trying to use the new keyword inside the heap memory, so it will come up with a new object. This object, it does not contains to this object. There is no relation here. So this object cannot have this relation. Okay, So here we don't have any relations to each and every object which are available inside this particular objects here. Okay, but earlier the box 1 and box 3 we have a relation. How we are having the relation? Because both are pointing to the same object. But right now it is not going to point. It is having different object information here. Okay, so this is very important information we are discussing today, because this is the initial stage. If you understand how the object is going to create and how the values are initializing internally, and how we are trying to modifying the value. Okay, so any questions regarding this particular the multiple box object we created here? Okay, now, so if it is clear, now what I will do, so we understand the object declaration and object initialization. So how we can declare an object and how we can initialize an object basically. Okay, this is also important, because in the earlier section we identified into value I'm declaring, and in the different location value is equals to something like 100. Okay, this section we'll call it as a declaration, and this section we'll call it as a initialization. Okay, this is important here. So here this is the data type we are having, and this is the name of the variable, and what we are doing here, so just we are declaring here. So declaring, basically we come up with a semicolon, the line is ended, and in the below if you see, this is the name of the variable and it is the value, it is a value here. Okay, so right now same way how we can declare the objects here. So observe carefully. Here I'm trying to provide the type here. First we need to provide the type, something like a box here. It is the type, and name of the variable box 1. I'm providing the semicolon. Okay, name of the variable, and I'm providing the semicolon. And so if you observe carefully, box 1 is equals to new. Here I'm trying to create the box object here. Here I'm trying to create the box object. So this section we'll call it as a again declaration, and this section we'll call it as a initialization. Okay, this is important here. How we are declaring here. So declaring, it's contain the type, what is the type of object we want to declare, and what is the reference variable we are going to use, that the name of the reference variable we are going to provide, and finally while initializing here we are trying to use the reference variable, and finally here what we are doing is we are calling the default constructor to initialize the default values, and we are using the new operator. The new operator is going to create an object here. Okay, this is important, declaring an object and initializing an object. But whenever we are declaring here, this box 1 at the time of this particular declaration, it is not connected to the heap memory. Okay, it is not connected to this particular heap memory. When it is in the declaration stage, when it is going to connect here, so this is the line, this particular line. When we are trying to create an object, at the time of creation only, it will try to connect into this particular heap memory. So at the time of this particular declaration, it is not going to connect it to the any heap memory here. So this is important. Once this particular new operator using this particular new operator, if we create an object here, so at the time of creation only, it is trying to connect it to the heap memory. Okay, this is also important, when we can go for the declaration and when we can go for the initialization here. Okay, so this is the important information we are discussing here. So any questions regarding this particular declaration and initialization? Okay, so now what I want to provide the information. So right now you can understand only we are going to use this particular new keyword to create an object. We have a different methods here. So the second method we can go for the clone, and another method we have a factory method. With help of this particular factory also we can clone the object, like we can create an object here. So those information we can see later, but we are inside the initialization stage. First we need to understand the using this particular new keyword. We have a different ways of creating an object here. Okay. Now, so when we can go for this particular declaration and when we can go for the initialization here. Basically, what happens internally, I want to access this particular object. I want to access this particular object. So from outside of this particular scope. For example, this is the scope I'm having. So here I'm trying to create an object. But here, so for example, if it is a 16 and a 17 and a 18 line number. Okay, so we have a three line numbers. In the line number 17 I'm creating an object, but the line number 19 and the line number 20, I want to access the same object what we created, the line number 17. The line number 17, whatever the object we created using this particular way, whatever the object I created, I want to access outside of this scope here. This is important here. That's why I'm opening the braces here. Here it's open and it is closed here. Okay. Outside of this particular brace, I want to access line number 19 and line number 20. Okay. If I'm not declaring like this, outside of this particular scope, we cannot access here. We cannot access. So for example, observe here. So this is the scope I'm open and this is the scope I'm closing. Okay. Otherwise, we'll make so observe here I'm opening and here I'm closing. Okay. So here I'm trying to create box. Box 1 is equals to new. Here I'm trying to create a box object here. Okay. We am creating the box object, and here box 1 dot something like width is equals to some 100 I'm giving. Okay, this is we already identified now. So here we are discussing the line number 9 object created, and after creating an object I want to access this information, box dot width, box 1 dot width. Now, so this is, imagine something like a 16 and something like a 17, 18 and 19. So at the time of line number 20, so this is the println method I'm trying to use. Okay, the println method I want to use something like box 1 dot value. Box 1 dot value. Can we access or not? So this is the print statement I'm using outside of this particular scope. The scope is ended with the line number 19. But line number 20, now what I'm doing is I'm trying to access the same box 1 here. The same box 1 dot value. Okay, box 1 dot value. But right now compiler cannot understand from where this particular box 1 is coming. Why the compiler cannot understand? Because it is important to understand the scope. The scope here, we opened here, we closed here. Okay, so we opened the line number 16, we closed the line number 19. So within the 16 and 19, you can do any operation. If you're trying to print the same thing under this particular scope, it will not give you any error. But whenever we are coming out of this particular scope, it will give an error because compiler cannot find this box 1. Compiler cannot find from where this particular box 1 is coming. Okay, so this is important here. So at the time of this particular situations here, now what we can do, we can go for the declaration and we can go for the initializations here. Okay, so how I am trying to declare this section. So you can see again I'm defining the same scope here, and here outside of this particular scope, observe carefully, box, here I'm trying to define box 1. Okay, this is the, just now we discussed about the declaration. Okay, and here box 1 is equals to new. The constructor I'm going to call something like box. Here I'm going to provide the semicolon. Okay, so here I'm providing the box 1. So whenever same thing 16, 17, okay, 18 and 19. So in the 17 line number, we are creating an object here, and 18 line number box 1 dot width we are initializing. What is the value we are trying to initializing? Something like 100 I'm initializing. Okay, so this is the way we can initialize. And now line number 20. The line number 20 we can access. We can call this particular print method. We can call this particular print method, and we can access the box 1 dot value. Box 1 dot value. Okay, why I'm able to call now? Why I'm able to call this particular method now? Because the scope is started with 16 and the scope is ended with 19. But where we are declaring it, the object we are declaring at the time of line number 15. Okay, line number 15 I'm declaring an object. So scope is open and scope is closed. But even though the scope is closed, because at the time of line number 17, it's going to create an object and it will initialize the object. It will initialize the object into this particular variable called box 1. And the box 1 where we declare here, here the line number 15 we declare. And happily we can access from the line number 20 here. Happily we can access the line number 20. So in these cases, this is important here. In these cases, we can access the object declaration and the object initialization. So here we are trying to initialize the object here. Okay, so this is all about the important information we are discussing about the object declaration and object initialization here. Okay, this is the simple example we are discussing. And now what I will do, so we'll discuss the method section in tomorrow. So right now just we are discussing about the variable information and how we can declare the variable and how we can initialize the value and how we can access the values here. Getting the point? So the 3 steps we'll see one more time. Declaring the variable double width. Okay, so double width we are declaring here. Double width. Okay, this section we'll call it as a declaration. And how we are initializing the value? The initialization box 1 dot width. Box 1 dot width is equals to something like 100. So declaring the value, initializing the value, okay, and finally accessing the value. To access this particular value, what we are doing is print method box 1 dot width. Okay, this will print the value. Whatever the value it is held by this width variable, it is going to print. So declaring, initializing, and accessing. Okay, these are all the important information we discussed in the today's session. Okay, any questions regarding our today's session? Okay, so I'm requesting everyone, so try to go through the recorded videos. So I'm trying to upload the day-to-day sessions here, and if you have any questions, so we can ask me in the tomorrow session. So we'll continue tomorrow with the method related information. Okay, so we'll continue tomorrow.